What if I told you that the woman everyone underestimates in the room is actually the most powerful one in it?
Right.
What if her silence isn't weakness, it's a weapon she's been sharpening for years, while everyone else was busy proving themselves for attention she never needed? What if the reason she walks alone isn't loneliness, but mastery, because she has already learned that peace cannot be found in a crowd that never truly saw her? What if every tear she hid in the dark became the exact fuel that built the fire you see in her eyes today? What if the calm on her face is not the absence of a storm, but proof that she survived one no one else even knew about? In the next few minutes, you are going to learn the 7 rules that separate wise women from the rest of the world, rules that were never taught in classrooms, only earned through pain, patience, and silence. Stay until the end, because rule number 7 will completely change the way you see power. This is not just a video, this might be the exact reminder your spirit has been waiting for. True wisdom is silent power. The strongest women in history rarely raised their voice. They raised their standards. Emotional control need emotional suppression. A wise woman feels everything but reacts to nothing without thought. Solitude is a weapon, not a punishment. The ability to walk alone separates the wise from the crowd. Validation is a trap. The moment you need approval, you lose your power. Pain is a teacher, not an enemy. Every wise woman was once broken and rebuilt herself in silence. Stillness is the final form of strength. The calmest woman in the room is usually the most dangerous one. What if the woman you admire most has never once raised her voice to prove her worth? What if her silence has broken more hearts, changed more minds, and won more wars than screaming ever could? Somewhere in this world right now, a woman is being underestimated because she is calm, and that calmness is the very thing that will destroy every wall built against her. Speak less, observe more. What if the loudest person in the room is always the weakest one? Wise women do not announce their next move, they simply make it. While others waste their energy convincing people of their value, a wise woman lets her results speak so loudly that words become unnecessary. She listens twice as much as she talks, because every conversation is information, and information is power. She knows that revealing her plans invites sabotage, so she keeps her cards close and her face unreadable. This is not weakness, this is discipline. The world mistakes silence for softness, but real silence is a blade sheathed in patience, waiting for the exact moment to strike. When she finally speaks, people listen, not because she is loud, but because she has earned the right to be heard through years of restraint. Watch closely and you will notice the women who talk the least are usually the ones controlling the room. They are 3 steps ahead while everyone else is still explaining themselves. Silence is not the absence of power. It is power, concentrated, coiled, and ready. What if crying in private and smiling in public is not fake? It is mastery. A wise woman does not pretend she feels nothing. She simply refuses to let her lowest moments dictate her next decision. She has learned the most dangerous lesson of all, that emotions are visitors, not landlords. She allows herself to grieve, to rage, to break down completely behind closed doors, and then she rises, recalibrated and sharper than before. This is the difference between the woman who explodes in public and the one who quietly rebuilds her entire life while no one is watching. Suppression builds pressure that eventually destroys you from the inside. Mastery channels that same pressure into fuel. She does not numb herself, she processes, she releases, and then she moves. People will try to provoke a reaction from her because a reaction gives them control. A wise woman refuses to hand over that control so easily. She feels the fire. She lets it burn where no one can see, and she walks back out into the world with ashes turned to armor. That is not coldness. That is the highest form of self-command a human being can achieve. What if the very people clapping for you today are the reason you feel so empty tomorrow? Wise women understand the brutal truth early. Most relationships are built on convenience, not loyalty. So they train themselves to be complete alone, because a woman who needs no one cannot be manipulated by anyone. This does not mean isolation, it means independence so deep that companionship becomes a choice, not a desperate necessity. She eats alone without shame, makes decisions without asking 20 people for permission, and builds her dreams without waiting for applause. The crowd fears the woman who does not need them because she cannot be controlled through fear of abandonment. Solitude sharpens her intuition. In the quiet, she hears her own thoughts clearly, without the noise of other people's opinions clouding her judgment. She learns who she truly is only when no one else is around to perform for. This is why the wisest women often seem distant. They are not cold. They are simply unwilling to shrink themselves just to be surrounded. Walking alone is not loneliness. It is the ultimate proof that her peace does not depend on anyone else's presence. What if the reason you feel invisible is because you keep asking permission to exist loudly? Wise women eventually reach a breaking point where the opinions of others simply stop mattering. Every time she sought validation, she handed a piece of her power to someone who never deserved it. So she made a decision. Her worth would no longer be voted on by people who could not even manage their own lives. She stopped dressing for approval, stopped softening her ambition to make others comfortable, stopped apologizing for taking up space. This shift terrifies people who are used to controlling women through guilt and judgment. When you no longer need applause, you become unstoppable because rejection can no longer touch you. She still respects others, but she no longer bends her spine to please them. This single decision, choosing self-approval over public approval, is often the exact moment a woman's entire life transforms. She stops shrinking, she stops explaining, she simply lives, builds, and grows, and if people do not like it, that is no longer her burden to carry. What if every scar you are hiding is actually proof of a war you already survived? Wise women do not bury their pain, they mine it for strength. Betrayal taught her discernment. Heartbreak taught her boundaries. Poverty taught her discipline. She refuses to let her worst chapters become her final identity. Instead, she extracts the lesson and burns the rest. This is why broken women often become the most powerful ones. They have already faced the worst version of life and walked out the other side. Comfort never built a warrior. Struggle did. She does not romanticize suffering, but she refuses to waste it either. Every failure becomes data. Every heartbreak becomes wisdom. Every setback becomes fuel for the next version of herself. People who have never suffered cannot understand the calm confidence of a woman who has already survived her rock bottom, because what else is there left to fear? She walks through life unbothered by small threats because she has already faced the biggest one, losing herself, and she chose to come back stronger instead. Choose your battles with precision. What if reacting to everything is the fastest way to lose control of anything? Wise women do not fight every battle offered to them. They choose only the ones that matter. She has learned that anger given away freely is power wasted on people who do not deserve her energy. Not every insult needs a response. Not every provocation needs a reaction. Not every disrespect needs an argument. She observes, she calculates, and she decides, is this worth my peace? Most of the time, the answer is no. And that restraint is mistaken for weakness by those who cannot understand it. But make no mistake, when she finally does choose to fight, she fights with a precision that ends things permanently. She is not passive, she is patient. There is a difference between a woman who cannot fight and a woman who is simply waiting for the right moment. The wise woman is always the second one, and by the time her opponent realizes it, it is already too late to recover.
Master stillness.
What if the calmest woman in the room is actually the most dangerous one? Wise women understand that chaos reveals weakness, but stillness reveals mastery. When everyone around her is panicking, she becomes quiet. When everyone is reacting, she observes. This is not because she does not feel the pressure. It is because she has trained herself to think clearly under pressure, while others drown in it. Stillness is not passivity. It is the highest level of control a human being can reach. A wise woman does not need to move fast to move forward. She moves with precision, and precision always outperforms panic. In her stillness, she sees what others miss, because a calm mind notices details a chaotic one cannot. People underestimate her because she does not perform strength loudly, but her results speak with a force that words never could. True power was never about noise. It was always about the quiet confidence of a woman who knows exactly who she is and refuses to let the world's chaos disturb that knowing, even for a single second. What if the woman you call too much is actually the only one who got it right? What if softness was never her weakness, it was her disguise? And what if the world keeps trying to break her, not because she's fragile, but because everyone around her can sense she is close to becoming unbreakable? Watch a wise woman closely. She does not raise her voice to be heard. She does not chase to be chosen. She does not perform pain for sympathy or joy for approval. She simply lives on her own terms, at her own pace, answering to no noise but her own. And that terrifies people, because a woman who needs nothing from you cannot be controlled by you. This is not a story about confidence. Confidence can be faked. This is about something deeper, the quiet architecture of a woman who has stopped performing and started becoming. And once you see these 7 rules, you will never look at strength the same way again. She does not explain her silence. When she goes quiet, the world panics. People beg for reasons. They demand access to her thoughts as if they are owed a map of her mind. But a wise woman knows silence is not punishment, it is protection. She has learned that not every question deserves an answer and not every person deserves entry. Where the untrained woman fills silence with justification, fear, or over-explaining, the wise one lets it sit, heavy, undisturbed, complete on its own. Her silence is not empty, it is full of thoughts she is no longer obligated to share. She understands something most never will. Explaining yourself to people who are determined to misunderstand you is not communication, it is exhaustion. So she stops, not out of coldness, but out of self-respect. And in that stillness, something shifts. The people around her start reflecting, start wondering, start earning her words instead of extracting them. This is her first quiet rebellion. She reclaims her voice by choosing when not to use it. Because a woman who no longer explains herself has stopped asking for permission to exist. She chooses her battles, not her enemies. The undisciplined mind reacts to every insult, every slight, every disrespect, burning energy on people who were never worth the fire. But a wise woman has learned a brutal truth. Not every attack deserves a response, and not every disrespect deserves her attention. She does not fight to prove she can. She fights only when the outcome matters. Someone can provoke her all they want. If the battle leads nowhere, she simply does not show up. This confuses people. They expect anger. They expect defense. Instead, they get silence, distance, or a smile that says, "You're not worth my energy." This is not passivity, it is precision. She has watched others destroy themselves chasing every argument, defending every opinion, correcting every fool, and she refuses that trap. Her peace is not for sale, not even for the price of being right. She picks her wars the way a general picks ground, only where victory means something. Everything else she lets pass like wind past a mountain, untouched, unmoved. Because the woman who fights everyone eventually has no energy left for the one battle that truly matters, her own becoming. She guards her energy like treasure. Most people give their energy away freely to people who drain them, situations that exhaust them, relationships that take and never return. A wise woman does not. She treats her energy the way a warrior treats blood, sacred, limited, never to be spilled carelessly. She has learned to notice who leaves her tired and who leaves her alive, and she restructures her life around that truth without apology. She will leave a room, she will end a conversation, she will disappear from spaces that once felt like home simply because they no longer feed her. People will call her selfish, she calls it survival because she understands something the world refuses to teach. You cannot pour from a version of yourself that has been drained by everyone else's chaos. Protecting her peace is not cruelty, it is maintenance. It is the discipline of a woman who refuses to become a resource for people who never intended to replenish her. So she builds boundaries, not walls, quiet, firm, unshakable, and in guarding her energy so fiercely, she guards the very thing most women lose first, herself. She never begs anyone to stay. There is a certain desperation the world expects from women chasing, pleading, shrinking themselves smaller and smaller just to keep someone from leaving. A wise woman refuses this ritual entirely. She has understood a law that cannot be broken. What belongs to her cannot be lost, and what is meant to leave was never truly hers. So she does not chase, she does not shrink, she does not perform a version of herself designed to make someone stay who has already decided to go. When someone pulls away, she does not run after them, she watches calmly and lets the truth reveal itself. Because begging someone to stay only proves one thing, that she has confused presence with worth. She has learned that a love, a friendship, or a bond that requires convincing is not a bond, it's a burden wearing a disguise. So she releases her grip again and again on people who are only ever passing through. This is not coldness, it is mastery. Because the woman who does not beg is the woman who has already learned her own value, cannot be negotiated by someone else's hesitation. It is mastery over the ego that most people are still enslaved to, because a woman who can face her own wrongness without collapsing has access to a kind of freedom most will never taste. So she keeps growing, breaking every cage quietly built around her, one boundary at a time until no one can shrink her again. She walks alone before she walks with others. This is the rule that defines all the others. A wise woman does not fear solitude, she has trained in it. Before she asks for loyalty, she has already proven it to herself. Before she asks for love, she has already learned to sit in silence without needing another voice to feel whole. This solitude is not loneliness, it is preparation. It strips away every borrowed opinion, every performance for approval, every identity built to please someone else, until what remains is simply her, unfiltered, unshaken, unclaimed. And only from that place can she choose people correctly, because a woman who cannot survive alone will accept anyone just to avoid the silence. But a woman who has mastered being alone chooses her people the way a mountain chooses nothing. She simply stands, and the right ones find their way to her. This is her final, quiet power. She does not need the world to complete her. She entered it whole, and everyone who meets her can feel that difference. The unmistakable presence of a woman who is never waiting to be saved. These 7 rules are not decorations for a woman's personality, they are the discipline beneath her peace. Silence without apology, battles chosen with precision, energy protected like treasure, presence never begged for, mistakes owned without shame, growth pursued even when it costs comfort, and solitude mastered before connection is allowed. This is not the story of a woman who became strong overnight. It is the story of a woman who stopped negotiating her worth, one rule at a time. The world does not create wise women. It tries to erode them. And the ones who survive that erosion, who keep choosing themselves anyway, those are the ones history remembers. She grows where others try to cage her. Every wise woman eventually meets people who preferred her smaller, quieter, softer, easier to control. Family, friends, sometimes even love will unconsciously punish her growth because it disturbs the comfort of what used to be. A lesser woman shrinks back to keep the peace. A wise woman does not. She recognizes the cage for what it is, fear disguised as concern, and she expands anyway. She takes the new opportunity even when no one claps for her. She speaks the new truth even when old friends go quiet. She becomes the version of herself that makes rooms uncomfortable because comfort was never her responsibility, becoming was. This is often the loneliest rule because growth cost relationships that were only built for the smaller version of her. But she pays that price without bitterness because she understands something final. Those who need you small were never invested in your future, only your familiarity. She owns her mistakes without shame. The untrained mind hides from failure, denies it, disguises it, blames everyone else to survive the sting of being wrong. A wise woman does the opposite. She walks straight into her mistakes, names them without flinching, and lets them teach her instead of torture her. She does not perform guilt for an audience, and she does not collapse into shame either. She simply corrects course. Where others waste years defending a wrong decision just to protect their ego, she abandons the wrong path the moment she sees it clearly, no matter how much pride it costs. This is rare. Most people would rather be comfortable and wrong than uncomfortable and free. But she has learned that shame paralyzes while ownership moves. Every mistake becomes data, not disgrace. She apologizes when needed, clearly without groveling. And then she keeps walking unburdened. People mistake her calm response to failure for carelessness. It is not,